that stuff. I think I was. Yeah, I almost kind of prefer just have it black, I think. And like the border. Could I just have it randomly initialized to something? That would be cool. We'll just pick yellow today. We'll just do that and then get that. How can I change the border? Cool. I don't know if this is being, yeah, whatever. If it hasn't changed, no, I think it changed already. Okay, cool. So what I just want to do today, like in literally 12 minutes from now, I just because I have to move to something else. But this has been bothering me a little bit since yesterday. So again, the idea is so we get people to mint NFTs by giving us, the content IDs. Now this is gonna I changed that a little bit. So this is gonna put them into the owner's mapping, but then unless that, so on the owner's mapping, cool. So a token ID $2, but unless this token ID, which is going to be used here as a key as well, unless this token ID is also mapped to a validator, it means it hasn't been validated. And we can start with just one validation, but we can also have like a requirement to then have 3 validators or something like that, right? Like sort of akin to what currently peer review mechanisms work like that. You have 3 reviewers, right? So you would do something like that. So you have 3 validators, and that's a requirement to actually get the stuff minted. So cool. So what we would need to do now is we need validators to actually have skin in the game. So we need validators to basically be registered as validators, because then what we also can have is we can have another function that is going to be called dispute validation, which basically this function it can be called when someone thinks that an ID, that a token, sort of that one of these video materials is not really well validated, and if you're just going to dispute a validation, then you get 3 maybe other validators to dispute that or something like that. I don't know. At some point, you kind of have to close the cycle, I guess, or initially, because I don't want to have like even a single centralized piece to these, right? So maybe. Because you can have 3. Maybe we don't need to do that. Maybe we don't need the validators. Maybe we don't need the validators, because the problem with these is you still need a mechanism. How does proof of stake work? Like who takes the stake away? Because that's an interesting topic, right? Because like the whole point of proof of stake is that if you want to contribute to the whole blockchain stuff, mining things, you must have, so you can stake like 26 ETH or something, and if you're doing something wrong or malicious, then the stuff this ETH can be taken out from you, right? But who does that? So so we know that. Okay. Proof of stake. Oh God. I hate these fucking YouTube covers. So who reviews proof of stake? disputes. Who does that? Because if it's the network itself, then it's just like, you know, you don't want to have stuff centralized, right? Ah, that's a fucking article. Maybe here, proof of stake. Peercoin. Centralization. No, okay. That's okay. Because essentially, you know, essentially it's more like you, another way that we could just do these is if we would say, look, we don't need to register you as a validator, right? So people can validate, right? So if you incentivize this correctly, so let's say if you need 3 validations of a token, right? Because it's the same at the end, what happens, like who reviews the reviewers, right? In a peer review mechanism. So you have the 3 reviews and then, you know, let's say 2 of them at least must approve the NFT, right? Or actually in this case, all of them must approve that, because it's about checking that that's not. So if we make it expensive enough, I mean expensive, it shouldn't be expensive, right? But if you validate, you want the validator to get a reward in ANSYS coins as well, but also you want the validator, you want for this to be expensive enough so that you don't have a malicious user going and kind of validating the same, like auto validating their own things, right? So you kind of have validation accounts that validate like fake video material or something like that, that's posted, that's kind of minted by another address, right? So if the point is, you know, if it's too expensive to do that, right? Because you're going to pay to mint, it's going to cost you money, it's going to cost you money to validate. So at what point is it worth, I guess that's a game of the value between what the ANSYS coin will be worth, unless we require ANSYS coin itself to do that. But then it means, because then it means you should always be given, you're given ANSYS coins that you can use to because the whole validation mechanism, it's simple to implement, but what's the point anyway, right? So if you have, because that's the thing, you can always fool the system. If you have validators that validate things, but then eventually validate, tokens, but then at the end of the day, then who can dispute validation, right? And what's the effect on that? So, and who then validates a dispute validation, which in turn you need to make the same kind of mechanism, right? And have maybe 2 or 3 people look at the dispute validation, which essentially it can be, it's vulnerable to the same, kind of attack. So I'm just thinking, you know what, I think we don't need that. I think we'll go without that. I think we'll just go without we don't need to register validators. You just want other people to validate tokens. And then as soon as you have 3 validations, then you get the coins, the reward. And then the validators get the incentive. Maybe we could play a game here where it's like the validators get only, but they spend money doing that, so they should always get a kickback as well. Because we need to reward validation, but we need to make sure that the reward is not more. It needs to be better than the costs of validating. like it shouldn't be too cheap to validate, right? Because then you can cheat. That's the point. That's the point. So what do we have so far? We have a mint function that means a token, and then we have a validate function that what it does is requires that the token exists and adds you the validator address as the validator for this token ID. And so if this is third validation, third positive validation, I guess we can keep track of these by having another mapping, which is called validations. And so it's going to be basically, these are the validators, and then you're going to have tracking amount of validations. And so we have basically a token and then an integer, right? Validations. Validators, validations. And so what you're going to have here at the end is you're going to say you add validators, then you say validations for this token ID +1, and you know, and then basically if this is bigger or equal than 3, then so reward to do reward the reward owner. I need to actually reward owner, right? Owners token ID, and then here reward validator to do what do we do with invalidations. Well, you just don't validate them, right? So you only want to call validate, and it's your own risk if it's already been validated. Maybe we can have another function called get validations on the token ID, so you kind of yourself know, okay, I'm gonna be, you know, I can do that. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's keep it like that for now. Well, it's easy to implement, you know. So get validations, and then we have a token ID, and it's returning these, so it returns validations. Cool. So I think we're good. Yeah. So as a potential validator, I can check whether a token ID is it needs to be validated. Function to get a token to be validated. Yeah, so that's a good one. And then you can check how many validations they have. Yeah. And then you kind of validate the stuff. I have to think whether this all makes sense, as in, like, is there enough skin in the game? I want this to be fully decentralized, right? So you want to mint stuff because you're contributing your work, and then you're getting ANSYS coins back. You want to validate stuff. It's actually like, you know, the reviewers, right? So you want to validate stuff. So if you get 3 validations, as soon as you get 3 validations, you get the coins. And you know, maybe you can have a scheme where you can have even more validations and get more coins. I don't know. and you also get rewarded as a validator. But I don't know how, because we want to make sure that the validators are incentivized to validate, but we want to make sure that it's not too, so that it's prohibiting, so it's not too easy to, you know, upload a video cat and then validate it yourself 3 times, right? So you get, it depend, that's, I guess that's going to be the calculation that we have to make in terms of the reward we give to the owner. And exactly, so it's not worth it to mint and validate your own stuff, right? But it's got to be worth it to validate independently and to mint independently. That's the challenge. See you next time.